Hello, this is Jamie Mitchell, and we are back with another episode of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast, going over all the posts on the Libertarian Uncensored subreddit. Let's get right into it. So first we have Rand Paul introduces bill to require congressional consent for tariffs from Reason.com by Far and Chimney. And yeah, I would agree with that. I personally don't really like tariffs, and I'm glad that Rand Paul is taking a stand against how the leader of his own party and Donald Trump is trying to implement them. I think, tariffs are an extra tax you pay, and I don't really care for taxes in general. Just because something's imported doesn't mean you should have to pay more for it through a government order, and that's my thoughts there, And yeah, I think that goes against the free market, and I think the free market is, the government shouldn't be determining what the cost of things are. That should only be up to the market, not the state. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have, is Dr. Oz going to push Medicare for all? From Hip Hop Libertarian, they said, Dr. Oz once proposed ending private insurance and replacing it with Medicare for all. Now that he's in charge of Medicare, does he intend on acting on this? From NBCNews.com, and that's from an NBCNews.com article, Dr. Oz proposed to change Medicare for Trump, And, I personally don't think he's going to do that, because the party's against it, and, I don't think they're gonna do anything that big. I personally think if people want the government to pay for their health insurance, I think they should be able to do so, but I think if people want the private industry to pay for their health insurance, they should be able to do so as well. So that's my thoughts on that issue. And, I definitely do think, Trump's mostly going to appoint people who to toe the neocon line, even if he marks himself as not being a neocon, because, it's just going to be like his first term. He's just going to have the same deep state bureaucrats running the country, even if he might market himself as otherwise. He's pretty much just an edgy version of George W. Bush in that regard. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Matt Gaetz withdraws from consideration for as Attorney General, original title, from Ground News by Dr. Who 07. And, I think I think Matt Gaetz was probably one of Trump's better appointments. I do think he might have had some character issues, but with that being said, he definitely did seem to be one of the more anti-establishment picks that Donald Trump had. So I'm sad that he's not going to be the Attorney General. But regardless, even if we did get him as Attorney General, he's probably just going to end up being controlled opposition just like the rest of them. And that's my thought on that issue. Then we have Trump goes full dictator and latest threat to GOP senators from NewRepublic.com by CH4Locks. And, I don't think that's too good. But, Trump, he's always been saying these threats for a decade now. It's pretty much, the story could have been printed any time in the past decade. And, not much has really changed since then. And, I think Trump just says a lot of stuff to get people to talk about it. And then he doesn't really act on it. And I think this is another example of that. And that's my thoughts there. Then we have Libertarianism 101 Communism from Nathan R.H. They said a family is a commune. One could say individualism is the opposite of communism, a paraphrase of group philosophy, but that's not really true. An individual is one, a communion is any number more than one. They are conceptually different, and thus no polarity really exists. Everybody is both an individual, objectively regardless of perception, and part of groups. Subjectively open to interpretation does not exist without imagination. Plebeian definition coming out of Vietnam War era education was communism, capitalism, or Orwell's. Neither word is being used correct. There's no polarity between the market force and the philosophy of groups. Fascism in the modern day has fully simulated communism. Groups are conspiratorial. They can be divided. Fascism needs to dial to propaganda with. Authoritarians don't use those words correctly, of course, because education is inherently power to the people. And that was kind of a word blob, that's kind of a rambling from them, I guess. But I definitely do agree that, individualism is the opposite of communism. And I think if people want to voluntarily form communes or collectives, I think they should be able to. What I think the libertarian perspective is to be against forced collectivism, to make everything voluntary. If people don't want to do something, they shouldn't be forced to do it. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have House passes bill that would allow Treasury to target nonprofits if it deems to support terrorism from ABC News by Frosty Slawman. And, I personally don't really care for that. but because the state can determine any dissent at all to be terrorism, just like how a lot of Democrats these days, they say, oh, any dissent at all might constitute hate speech and misinformation, should be censored, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders agree on a foolish idea, controlling the price of credit from them in Limelight, and they said, as an excerpt from The Economist, what Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders got wrong about credit cards. Democrats spent much of the president's election campaign calling Donald Trump a fascist. Mr. Trump is hardly known for his conciliatory nature, so few American politicals expect there to be much bipartisanship in his second term. Yet in one place there is already a flicker of hostile agreement. A proposal to cap interest rates on credit card repayments at 10% has won the support of both Mr. Trump and Bernie Sanders, perhaps the most prominent left-wing Democrat. Sadly, the policy is unwise. Like most price controls, capping interest rates would distort the market and hurt ordinary punters. Credit card issuers would probably respond by locking out less reliable borrowers, not by offering cheaper rates. And I would agree with that. It might be well-intentioned, but good intentions don't always result in good results. And yeah, I don't think the government should be controlling the market at all. I think the market needs to be a truly free market and not be bound by the shackles of government rules and regulations. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Texas Board approves Bible curriculum option in public schools from ABC News by Swan Panky Dan. And I would say, if the school wants to, if it's an option and not mandate, I think it's okay, but I don't think they should be given any extra benefits for it either, and that's my thoughts on that issue. I think the schools should teach whatever they want to teach. I'm very against mandatory curriculums, but I do think that they should be, if they want to teach Bible courses, they should be able to, but yeah, somebody might say, oh, separation of church and state. I would say that's the problem with having public schools in the first place, but regardless, I don't think it should be mandated or that it should be given any extra benefits for it. Then we have, you're laughing. It's been shown that Angela McCarroll sold out the Libertarian Party of Trump based on empty promises, but it's obvious that would happen. You're laughing from Ryan OKXT, and that's crosswords from the Fakertarian subreddit, and it's tweeted from Toad Anderson, his name is Tower Gun Code. We're losing every single position, and the anti-Trump libertarians will again just laugh about it. They're laughing about potential huge tangible wins in the direction of liberty being lost. I can't tell you how much I hate these people. They're essentially just carrying water for the regime. And I would agree with that, that's politics for you. You either get stabbed in the front, which is what Kamala Harris was going to do, or Trump will stab you in the back, And some people, I'm sure a lot of Harris voters, Trump would be more stabbing in the front and Harris would be stabbing in the back. But regardless, that's politics for you. You either get stabbed in the front or stabbed in the back, and sometimes you just have to cope with it. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Texas Attorney General declares war on advertisers who snub X, is investigating a possible coordinated plan or conspiracy to withhold advertising dollars from certain social media platforms from TechDirt.com by Donald Key, and that's crosswords from the technology subreddit. And yeah, I don't think X is entitled to any advertiser dollars like everyone else isn't entitled to any advertiser dollars. But with that being said, you do see these groups like Media Matters do kind of conspirationally push for them being for big companies to withhold their money for advertising dollars from X when they would have spent it anyway. And I do think that there is a libertarian argument for this, but regardless, I definitely don't think the advertisers should be forced to spend money that they don't want to on a platform that they don't particularly care for. But yeah, I definitely don't care for groups like Media Matters conspirationally pushing advertisers off of X because they want to because they want X to die so they can get people on back on the MSM narratives, even though I think that ship has long since sailed already. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have the oligarchical idiocracy from Donald Key, and that's crossed from the Facepalm subreddit, from the Politics Video Channel Twitter account, and it said, breaking, billionaire Elon Musk reportedly threatens to spend billions to unseat all Republican senators who forced Matt Gaetz to drop out. And yeah, if he wants to spend his money on that, I think he should be able to. I personally think, they always say, oh, this new generation, the MAGA is going to be is going to actually stand up to the Democrats, but they always just all end up being control opposition. So I don't think I wouldn't personally spend my money on it. But if he wants to do that, I think he should be able to. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Ohio's new Speaker of the House promises to undo cannabis legalization from Donald Key, and that's crossword from the Ohio subreddit. And I personally would disagree with that, but, you know, if he wants to justify doing that, I think he should be able to do so. Then we have private insurance is the rent-seeking middleman that doesn't pay for shit from Ragnarok HD. That's a tweet from Max Kennerly, who tweeted, "A notable aspect of private health insurance is the absence of any reason for it to exist. It does not contain costs, expand coverage, or expedite care. It makes those all worse. Its sole function is to profit as a rent-seeking middleman between patients and providers." And yeah, if he wants to make that, I think he should be able to. But I think if people do want to have private health insurance, I think he should be able to as well. I don't want the government controlling health insurance, just like I don't want it controlling everything else. You know, I think if people do want government health insurance, they should be able to have that as well. But regardless, I do think there needs to be a private option in addition to a government option. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have AG pick Pam Bondi's past vow, prosecute the bad prosecutors who indicted Trump from Swamp Hanky Dan. That's crosswords from the law subreddit. And yeah, you know, my thoughts on that are, you know, the two parties always say they're going after each other, but regardless, who they're really going after is the average American citizen. I think that's what people really need to realize. You know, that it's all just theater. They're coming after us, not themselves. Then we have, so now we have the entire cabinet roster, 0 libertarians. This should surprise no one, but imagine there's a few folks who feel like Trump lied to them. Yes, he did. From Chase Oliver on Twitter, and that's from the Libertarian Party USA subreddit. And, yeah, I definitely am not too surprised. You know, you could make the argument that Trump was a better option than Harris, but I personally don't really care for the lesser of two evils voting, and I personally never really believed Trump when he said, "Oh, I'm gonna appoint a libertarian to my cabinet," and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have John McAfee website is releasing mysteriously shroud updates from iowaswhack.com by Geodetic Chicken, and they list the coordinates. The coordinates on site lead to the base of a tree in Highland Park, Dallas, Texas. McAfee was shrouded in mystery with a mind as libertarian icon. Where is this leading? Is this his dead man's button after his suicide? And yeah, you know, I personally, I guess we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. You know, I think it might just be a crypto scam, but regardless, maybe they'll find evidence that it really was just it wasn't really a suicide, but more so the government assassination. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have the House of Cards against Daniel Penny is falling apart from nypost.com by Ninja Lover. And yeah, I personally think that you know, Daniel Penny did act against the guy who was acting crazy and saying he was going to kill anyone. You know, if you're making threats and being very crazy like that, you know, I think if you want to justify acting in self-defense or protecting others, I think you should be able to. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Pam Bondi picked to replace Matt Gaetz wants to deport pro-Palestinian protesters from telegraph.co.uk by Swamp Yankee Dan. And yeah, I personally think this is just gusto, but that's a lot of politics at this point, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. Then we have School Did Nothing Wrong when it punished student for using AI, court rules from arstechnica.com by Frosty Slawman. And yeah, I think if a school wants to punish a student for anything it wants to do, for any reason it wants to be able to do so. But with that being said, I do think people should be able to use AI however they feel like. I don't want the government telling people how they can and can't use AI. And that's all for the post, but I have another post I wanted to do from my own subreddit. And it was, let's see, like how the Holy Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire, the Libertarian Uncensored subreddit is neither libertarian nor uncensored. And I linked to the Reddit page for all the posts that have been removed from the Libertarian Uncensored subreddit. And that just goes to show you how, you know, people may say they're one thing, but they'll act against what they say they are. And yeah, that's why I very much see with the Libertarian Uncensored subreddit. It's mostly just progressive leftists trying to co-opt libertarianism. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And we're going to wrap up there. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.